Is Phase 5 the worst phase of any of the phases of the MCU? We're going to answer that question in today's video, which is a tier list. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I love these. These are so much fun. I hope you all enjoy them. We can continue to make them, but today we will be doing a tier list of all of the projects, every single movie, every single show in Phase 5, and answer the question, is it the worst? Is it somewhere in the middle? Maybe the best? You'll have to stick around and find out my thoughts. But before we get into my tier list, I want to thank you all for clicking on this video. Do me a favor, like I said up top, if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more of these type of lists, hit the thumbs up. Consider sharing this video to anyone and everyone you know that loves talking about the MCU. Also, more importantly, leave your tier list, your rankings of all of these projects in the comments below. And if it's your first time watching or listening to this in podcast form, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel and follow me on my podcast. With all that being said, let's rank and put these movies and shows on a tier list and determine if Phase 5 is any good or if it's at the bottom of the barrel.
I got this.
All right, so before we get into the actual tier list here, if this is your first time watching one of the tier lists on my channel or in general, just a basic rundown of the tier list and how I look at the score. So obviously we have at the top of the food chain is the S tier. Great. I don't want to say game changer, but it stands out amongst the crew. You have an A, which is a really solid film or television show. B, really fun, has some missing elements, but still a good time. C is kind of like middling, mid, if you want to call it that. D is just not a good project. And then obviously trash is just like, why did they even spend the time and the money to create this TV show or film?
People think I'm a shit talker, but this guy, next level.
So that's how we're going to break it down. So let's get into this list, man. Let's have some fun here. And let's talk about Phase 5. And coming out of the gate with Phase 5 is a film by the name of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, admittedly, I'm an Ant-Man fan. Like, I like that first Ant-Man 2015 film. Has a lot of heart, has a lot of charm. It's a really fun introduction to the character and the whole Ant-Man family and Ant-Man's crew. Very fun film. I am not a fan of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think that is a terrible movie. The only thing it has going forward is a couple laughs every now and then in the post-credit scene. But putting that aside, leading up into this third Ant-Man film, they were marketing the hell out of this, man. It got me kind of hyped. The idea of like Kang being obviously introduced in Loki, but actually seeing him in action with him taking on the persona of Kang and not just going by He Who Remains. And all the stuff leading into like, this is a big film. Like all of the previous, in my opinion, all of the previous Ant-Man films were kind of like placeholders in between the Avenger movies. And they really didn't get their due. They were almost, you know, in a way, pun intended, they were small films, but this is like the big film from Peyton Reed, who directed the first two. And look, there are some things I like about it. As far as being a science fiction fan, I like the sci-fi, weird science fiction elements with being in the quantum realm, even though it doesn't look that good visually, but the idea of being there was pretty cool. There are moments every now and then amongst the characters and the different journeys they go on, different sections and different aliens and people they introduce or introduced to in the quantum realm. And the Kang of it all, like we'll talk about the issue I have with Kang, but the performance by Jonathan Majors also, I like the story a little bit in regards to time and missing out on time. Like there's things that I like, but overall, this movie has aged like spoiled milk. There are three pillars for me about this film. There's a lot of issues, but I'm gonna stick to three. Number one, the recasting of Cassie, played by Catherine Newton, who I'm a big fan of. And I don't put all the blame on her, but I do think the recasting for any actor coming into number one, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but also coming into a third film of the franchise, it's a hard thing to do. And unfortunately, I don't think they pulled it off because the chemistry between Cassie and Scott and Cassie and Hank and everyone involved is just off. The chemistry was not there. You didn't feel the emotions, at least for me. And it's unfortunate because, again, she's a good actress. And I just think her emotional depth and her connection with MODOK, it just fell flat for me. So that's one. Number two, the Kang of it all. Again, I think the performance by Jonathan Majors is the strongest point in that film. And even putting the Jonathan Majors, supposed to be the big bad Kang with Avengers, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars, like putting that aside for a second and just thinking about the character and the idea that you're supposed to put this big level Thanos, big bad villain against Ant-Man. On paper, it sounds interesting, but again, the execution is not that good at all, because you are supposed to build him to be the big bad. He's killed Avengers. He's going to go against our Avengers and X-Men and all the stuff that King Dynasty was supposed to be, but he gets defeated by Ant-Man and his ants. That's a pretty hard character switch, and hard to make him menacing when you are supposed to take him from Loki to Ant-Man into his own Avengers film, and he's supposed to defeat the Avengers, but he can't defeat Ant-Man. It's a detriment to the character, major. Like when they were promoting him, I was thinking to myself, either this is a big come up for Ant-Man the character to take on Kang, or it's a downgrade for the character Kang, and I think it's the latter. I think they really did a detriment to the character, even though obviously at this point we're probably not going to see the character again due to, off-screen reasons. But that is a big issue, that we are supposed to buy Kang as the big bad, but he can get defeated by Ant-Man and his crew. So that's the second issue I have with the film. Number 3, probably the biggest. Where the hell is Luis? Like, seriously, Luis, Michael Pena, and also T.I. and David Dalmatian. Like, I like them, but Luis is the pillar of all of these movies, and he was sorely missed. Like, almost a whole letter grade went down for me in this film with the absence of Luis. Obviously, they're in a quantum realm. He's not going to Well, they could have took Luis in a quantum realm with them if they wanted to, but he could have had a cameo or popped up at the end, but for whatever reason, Marvel decided to not bring him back. Obviously, it could have been contract reasons. The actor, Michael Pena, could have been busy, but you got to make that work. Like, he is such a pillar to the franchise to me, and he was, like I said, he's the biggest part of why this film is a not so good movie, in my opinion. But those are my 3 issues on top of many other things. But with all that being said, again, I feel like this film is aged like this bad aged milk, because I don't think a lot of the narrative ties, the Kang of it all, what's going on with Scott, like, I don't think they're going to have much of a payoff. And I don't know if we'll ever see a solo Ant-Man film again, because this was, if you go back to that film in 2023, this is technically the first big flop in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, this film did terribly at the box office. So with all that being said, I'm going to put this film, I'm not going to put it trash. I'm going to do D, man. Like, I think this is not a good movie when you look at the whole sums. There's moments, there's parts, but overall, it's going in the D list for me. All right, moving on to our next film, and that is a movie that lifted everyone's spirits. And I'll just speak for myself. It lifted my spirits after coming from Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and that is the third another trilogy ending its franchise. At least for now, we're assuming it's ending, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Where do I begin, man? I love this movie so much. It's the heart, it's the emotions, it's the characters' journeys we've been on so far, it's the stylistic choices from James Gunn. It has care. There's a voice, there's a vision, there's a narrative to be told, there's a purpose. And I don't want to be mean to some of these other projects, but there is a reason for this film to be made, right? And it's the journey we've been on with these characters, and it just has everything from the comedy, the introductions of certain characters that work in some points. We'll talk about my negatives here in a second, but I just love these characters. I love Rocket, number one, knowing that he finally got his due, in a sense, having his full narrative and his backstory with his friends and the tragedy that comes with that. High Evolutionary is kind of hit or miss for me. Like, I like the actor. Then you have the Adam Warlock of it all. I like Will Palmer and Poulter, and he's okay. He's okay. Like, I think there's a lot more that could have been done, especially if you're familiar with the character from the comics. Like, James Gunn sometimes allows the comedy and the levity of the character to really kind of overpower who they really are. Drax being an example of that. Again, putting that aside, the narrative's strong, the emotions are strong. It's a great conclusion to these characters, and I honestly think we'll never see these group of Guardians. Like, you might see Peter Quill again, we might see Rocket again, but Gamora's Nebula, I think we'll see her again. I don't think we'll see Drax again. So if this is, which I feel like the last time we're going to see these characters, I think it was a beautiful way to send them off. And I think it's not my favorite film in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, but it is a wonderful, beautiful film in my opinion. And I'm going to put it at the A. I am a big fan of Guardians Volume 3. It's a great way to end these characters' chapters.
Now you're just making it sad.
All right, so now we are talking about a TV show. A TV show that had a lot of promise, that had a lot of potential, a lot of curiosity, some exciting parts to the idea of the show. We're talking about Secret Invasion. I'm not going to spend too much time on this show because I've spoken about it a lot on this channel. I covered every episode. I did live discussions about the episodes. I think, and I'm not speaking hyperbole, I'm not trying to be funny, I think this is, to this date, the worst project that Marvel Studios has produced. And I don't mean to be mean to the creators that put their heart and soul and efforts and years and blood and sweat into this TV show and the actors involved, but this is the bottom of the bottom. This is the worst thing that Marvel has made, in my opinion. Marvel Studios, MCU. Where do I begin? Sam Jackson, legendary I don't huge like the way I feel about what Kang huge did, like the way I feel about what Kang did and destroying the character, as far as like destroying the character, and even more so in Nick Fury, because it was complete embarrassment of what they did with the character. And Nick is such a fun, interesting character, and Sam, obviously, like I say, legendary actor, tries his best, but the writing is the biggest villain in this show. Speaking of villains, whose idea was it to give? And by all means, I love Emilia Clarke, Mother of Dragons. Whose idea was it to give her every single power imaginable in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I believe her character's name was Gia, and they give her all the powers. It's such a stupid idea. They get all the DNA from the Battle of Endgame and put it in a vial, and it's all there for someone. The stupidest thing ever. They give her all the powers. That is so. I hope they retcon that. Next time we see Gia, if we ever do, which is a big problem with this phase, is like the things they set up. Will we ever see them again? But if we do see Gia again, I hope the character has decided themselves to extract all of the powers, because it's just too many things for someone to handle, or they make an excuse like it's killing her from the inside. You need to depower Gia, because next time we see her, if she still has all her powers, why wouldn't she be able to defeat any issues from Doctor Doom or beyond Doctor Doom? Like, that is a one-stop shop, simple answer to defeating any issues is Gia, because she has every power imaginable. And then that's just a couple of things. I think they did a huge disservice to Nick Fury, a huge disservice to Emilia Clarke, huge disservice to Ben Mendelsohn. They killed his character off. They killed Maria. What was the Maria Hill is such a, I don't want to say integral part, because I don't really think they used the character properly, but how do you kill the character in the first episode in the way they do? Just complete waste. Kingsley Benadir, he's probably the best part of the show, but after a while you start to lose his motivations as the show goes on. And then you have the Rhodey of it all. Like, I almost forgot about Rhodey. Like, that is just an embarrassment to that character of like, he's been a scroll this whole time. Are you kidding me? I hate this show. I hate it. It is the worst thing they have ever made. It is an embarrassment to the Marvel Cinematic experience. And that's why I'm going to put this in the trash bin. This is a trash show. It's not even close. It's an embarrassment to the Marvel Cinematic experience, and it is an embarrassment to the people involved. They did so much disservice to this entire Olivia Colman. Such a terrible experience, and I hope they retcon. I hope they say, you know what, this show was in another universe. It was a dream. We apologize. It never happened. It is such a bad show. I hate Secret Invasion. Okay, now that I got that off my chest, let's talk about something that actually lifts my spirits. Very similar to Guardians. As you notice so far, this phase 5 has been an up and down roller coaster. Some high highs, but some low lows. But this, hopefully, you guys share a similar sentiment with me. This is a high, and I'm talking about Loki Season 2. Going back to how I felt about Guardians and James Gunn, there's a purpose, there's a vision, there's a narrative to be told, there is a priority there. There seems to be a let's take this serious approach, and that's how I feel about Loki Season 2. And just Loki, the TV show, Season 1 included. Depending on the day, I can go Season 2 is better than Season 1. Season 1's better than Season 2, but that just speaks to the quality nonetheless. This is a prestigious television to me. Like, this is one of not only the best shows in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I think it's just a great show in general compared to just any great shows that you compare it against. Like, again, I'm a science fiction nerd. I love the sci-fi, time, will, free will, going back in time, playing with time, the circumstances, consequences, and the ticking time bomb that Season 2 has about it, about the looms breaking and the multiverse being destroyed, and how Loki, the character arc, all the different, Morbius being included. And I'm a big fan. I love this show. I like the inclusion of Kang and the variant that we got to see in the TV show. And again, just the idea of like nothing's really true set in stone. People can change with Victor Timely. It is so well produced. The productional value, again, don't get me started on the score. One of the best elite scores of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is an A++, fantastically written. I can't wait to see Loki and the crew again. Hopefully we see him playing a big role. If rumors are to be true, he's going to be a big integral part. Obviously, if you've seen season 2, he's the god of stories, holding the timelines together. So he's going to be a big part in Doomsday. See the rest of the crew, Wumi Mushaku. I love this show, man. I'm gonna go ahead and put Loki on the S tier for me. It is an elite show. I love it so much, and I can't wait to see Loki and the rest of the crew sooner rather than later. All right, on to our next project, which happens to be a film and a sequel to a huge blockbuster success, and that is The Marvels, coming and following up from Captain Marvel. Now, this to me is, and yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but yet again, the highs and lows. We go from Loki down to The Marvels. Now, listen, this to me is a definition of a made-by-committee film, because you have Nia DaCosta, who I like as a director, right? She came out of the gate with a really strong independent film with Lily James and Tessa Thompson. She follows that up with Candyman, which I'm not the biggest fan of that, but you can see there's something there. It's just the execution wasn't great. And then we have this with The Marvels. It's just a mess, an unfortunate situation that the Marvel machine kind of took over the creative, and this being the case with Nia DaCosta. But talking to some of the positives, I will say what we get with seeing Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Aman Vellani as Miss Marvel, their chemistry is the strongest thing that carries a lot of this film. And also seeing Miss Marvel's family included, and the continuation of Monica. I'm a big fan of the character. I do think she's underused, not only in this film, but also just so far in the MCU. There are moments that I like with them on screen and how they work together, their powers, how they use the powers, and how they're entangled and how they have to go against one of the worst villains of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But there are beats, there are moments that, there's some funny moments every now and then. There's some visual flair every now and then when Nia DaCosta is able to put her stamp on the film. It works at points, but unfortunately, it's far and in between, because there are some literal ridiculous moments about this film. Number one, it's pretty forgettable. Like, narratively speaking, if I looked at you in the eye and say, hey, tell me what Captain Marvel, or to say The Marvels, is about, only thing I think you'll be able to say is probably, well, I know their powers get entangled and they have to fight a villain at the end, but outside of that, what else do you remember about the film? Like, the Kree in the Skrull War is kind of handled in a very just like dismissive way. The idea of the villain being that she's wanted revenge on Captain Marvel because she was known as the destroyer, the world destroyer. It's just a poorly written film. And then the singing planet. The icing on the cake is a singing planet. Like, what are we doing right now? I think the biggest takeaway for me is probably the post-credit scene, seeing that we're in this other universe with what we have with seeing Beast and obviously Monica Rambeau's mom being a binary, I believe is the character's name. So that opens up the possibility, like, oh, incursions, Doomsday, Secret Wars. We got to get this person off this universe because they don't belong there. If they stay there too long, again, that's how incursions happen. So again, this seems like one of those movies very similar to like Ant-Man and the Wasp to me, that it's all based on the only point in the movie is to get to the post-credit scene, which is unfortunate to say. And it's just, it's bad that we're at this point with these films and how they treat these characters. But I'm going to put Captain Marvel right next to Ant-Man Quantumania, which is just a waste of a movie, very forgettable movie, not a fun experience. And it's just the only purpose to me, like I said, was to have a post-credit scene. All right, next on our list is the television show, and that is What If Season 2 and 3. Now, this show came out of the gate with some interesting prospects. Like, I liked the first season, some really cool, the zombie episode, the Hank Pym as the murder episode. Like, there's some moments I liked about season 1, and there's moments I enjoy from season 2 and 3, but they're far and in between. A lot of it's forgettable, man. But it's just like, I was hoping, and I know Marvel never really guaranteed it, but I was just hoping that there was a way to incorporate what happens in that show into live action. And we got hints of that. Like, they introduced Peggy as Captain America in the season 1, and we saw her again in Doctor Strange. But I just wish it was more cohesion. It had more stakes to what's going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I like the Watcher. I like some of the characters. Like I said, there's some episodes every now and then, but it's pretty forgettable if you ask me. So with all that being said, I'm not going to spend too much time on What If, because I think it is just kind of a nothing burger at this point. I'll put it at the C list, season 2 and 3. Like I said, fun moments, but just not memorable. Speaking of not being memorable, that leads us into our next television show, and that is Echo, the very limited series. Dumped it all on Disney Plus at one time, which was a pretty big indicator that it seems like Marvel did not give two you-know-whats about this show. And honestly, I know why after seeing the final product, but I'm not going to put all that blame on Echo. It's just like, if you guys are already presenting it in a sense of you don't care about it. Why would the audience care about it? And why would you spend the time and the money and the efforts and funding this show if you're just gonna do what you how you treat it? It's an embarrassment. It just goes to speak to just the dysfunctional things that's going on behind the scenes with Marvel. But nonetheless, focusing on the show, it's not a terrible show. It's just again, it's not memorable. It's very forgettable. It's boring at times. It just doesn't have a point. If I'm being honest, I don't want to hash too many things I've spoken about or how I feel like Kingpin has been an embarrassment with Marvel's handling, with the MCU's handling compared to the character on Netflix. It's an improvement from Hawkeye, the version that we see in the show of Kingpin, but again, the way that he's just easily defeated, like it's taken Daredevil 4 seasons at this point to come close to defeating him. Obviously, we see him. We'll talk about Daredevil later, but we see how hard of a time it's to get Kingpin down from Daredevil. But yet, we watched him get beat up by Kate Bishop. I know people say she defeated him. I don't care what you say. Gets defeated by Kate Bishop, who is new on the job, a rookie on the job, and then gets defeated by, I don't even know what you call the magical abilities that she has with her ancestors at the finale of Echo. And just, it's an embarrassment to Kingpin. So I don't like the handling of the character so far. But again, the show has its moments. Like, of course, the Daredevil scene was cool, and seeing her using her abilities and fighting against Daredevil. And Mia is a cool character, man. But it's just so underwhelming, so underwritten. The family element worked at points, but it seemed to be forgotten about. The whole idea of her ancestors, like there's something there, but unfortunately, it just doesn't get the attention from Marvel. Like the writing, the direction, it's just they don't care, and it shows in the final product. So it's unfortunate. I highly doubt we'll see this character anytime soon, but I'm not going to be too harsh on the TV show. I'll give it I'm not gonna be harsh and put it by D, but it's D because it's one of those Disney Plus specials, which to me means it's a forgettable show. It's a D-list show, and it's unfortunate because there is something there. I like the representation that the character presents, but it just doesn't have the care or the attention that it deserves, in my opinion, and that's why I'm putting it in the D list for my personal ranking here. All right, before moving on to the rest of our tier list, I want to take this time to thank you all for making it to this point of today's video. If you're enjoying yourself, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up. Consider sharing this video, but also sharing your tier list in the comments below. But also consider subscribing to the channel or follow me on my podcast. Thank you all again for making it to this point. Let the fun continue. All right, moving on to our next project, and that is a movie by the name of Deadpool and Wolverine. This film comes with a whole lot of baggage. Obviously, the acquisition from Fox into Disney, first rated R character, rated R film, bringing back Hugh Jackman, and it's a lot of stuff, right? Listen, you can go back and watch my out of theater reaction, my review for the film. A lot of people were, coming at me like, this film is great. I'm like, y'all, man, this film story is pretty paper thin. It's just like all show, all, colors and rainbows and moving pictures, but there's no substance to this film. But putting that aside for a second, obviously it's one of the most profitable films in not only Phase 5, but of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, what did it make? 1.3 or one might have made 1.6. It's a very financially successful movie. It's accepted from the critics and the audience, and that's all gravy, man. And it's fun. It's a fun film. I like the banner between Deadpool and obviously getting Wolverine and Logan into the mix and bringing Hugh Jackman back in the role. It has its fun moments with Chris Evans. You think he's Captain America, but he's really Johnny Storm. You have obviously Blade, and you get Elektra, and Channing Tatum as Gambit, and obviously Laura back as X-23. It has some cool action moments. It's a fine, entertaining popcorn, shut your brain off movie. But then again, you look at the movie, you think about it. There's not a lot of people, including myself, that I don't know. A lot of people's like, oh yeah, I watch that all the time. It's like, I don't think this film has a lot of staying power. It's like a drug. It hits in the moment, but it's not good for you, right? It's like eating candy. It's good at the moment, but it's not going to have lasting effects. And I don't think this film has a lasting impression. And also, I don't think it's as important to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as they want you to believe it is, like the anchor beans. And I was assuming that Deadpool and Wolverine were going to end in the 616, but they're still in Wade's universe. So again, it's an in the moment, good moment for Marvel, obviously, because that, as we talked about with some of these projects so far, it's a lot of highs and lows and a lot of low lows. But this is a high point. This to me got all the fans for the moment on the same page. But to me, it's an okay movie at best, because I'm a story guy, and I thought the story was very piss poor in this movie. So Even with my issues, I'll give it a B. I'm not gonna be that much of a hater. Just looking at it, it's nowhere near Loki to me. It's nowhere near Guardians, but it's much better than the other stuff that we've gotten. So I'll give Loki, or I'm sorry, I'll give Deadpool Wolverine the B treatment. But again, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'm just being nice. I know y'all gonna kill me in the comments for not being the biggest fan of this film.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yes!
All right, moving on to our next project, and that is a TV show, kind of the spinoff sequel in a way of season 2 of WandaVision, and that is Agatha All Along, a show I was actually excited for because the same way, my same love that I have for science fiction, I have that same love for like horror and supernatural. So the idea of like witches and demons and all that stuff, like I like that side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I like the character and the idea that we want to learn more about the character and the idea about Billy and how that ties into Wanda and all the stuff that the show had on its plate. It delivered for the most part. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't the biggest fan of like half of the season. It took me a while to get used to like the very repetitive storyline of going on the witch's road and having these trials. But at the same time, we're learning more about the supporting characters and starting to love these characters and group and the chemistry, learning more about Joe Locke's character and finding out how he was able to get the essence of Billy into him. And even thinking about the character stuff they do with Agatha, with her backstory, understanding why she takes the powers of the witches. Her whole story with her son was very emotional. So there are things that I enjoy about the show. One of them being that it got better as it went along. Also, as I've said multiple times on my channel, I'm a huge Aubrey Plaza fan, and I loved her as Rio, aka Death. Don't know if we'll ever see her again. It's in the same conversation that we'll talk about later with the Mephisto character. But nonetheless, I have a lot more positive things to say about the show besides it took a while. It took me a while to get used to the tone, the story, to get into the repetitive nature of the show. But once the show finds its footing, it really kind of worked for me on a lot of beats. And I think Agatha All Along is definitely one of the better shows because, again, I go back to this show has a voice. This show has a personality. This show takes risk at times. It is not just, again, the same run-of-the-mill, familiar beats, stereotypical things. It actually has, like I said, a personality and flair, and that's why I gave it. Well, that's why it's on the beats here for me because it tries something different. All right, quick omission here. I just want to let you all know I added season 3 to the C tier. So if you guys see that moving on, I didn't forget about it. I just forgot to put it up next to season 2 and 3 of What If. But moving on to our next project, and that is a movie by the name of Captain America: Brave New World. Again, you look at some of these projects, man, and it obviously there's the pandemic, there's the writer's strike, and there's a lot of shows, a lot of movies were affected by those things, especially more recently with the writer's strike. And this is one of those movies and projects that were heavily affected. Major rewrites, recasting, removing entire plot points and characters like the Serpent Society. Like this movie went through the ringer. And unfortunately, that affects the final product. Now, I like Sam. I like him as Captain America. His show is kind of hit or miss. There's moments for me in that show, but Anthony Mackie's trying his best in the role, and I feel the earnestness. I feel the hero in Sam's story. I just feel like they've really mishandled the character. Like this is a perfect example of this to me. Like this character in his own movie feels like a supporting character. Like they just throw the story on Sam's lap. Like and this is one of the things that makes why I love Captain America, Steve Rogers. There's so many personal connections and ties to his story, to the Bucky of it all, to him being a man from the past, trying to integrate himself in the future, trying to be a leader, trying to, be the good guy and work with the government. And, it's so many things they give him on a personal level. But then you look at Sam Wilson and they don't really care to give this character anything to work with. Like we met his sister in his TV show, but where was she in the movie? Not that you need a love interest, but who does Sam care for outside of, Torres, right? Like this movie just lacks, obviously, Isaiah Bradley, who was probably the strongest point in the movie. But it's just like they don't give Sam enough to make me care for the character on a personal level. Again, as a hero, as a leader, it works, but it's just so many things that just feel so detached from the character. But the movie as a whole, again, I like Isaiah Bradley. There's some cool action beats. I love that we get to see a raging Hulk, even though the fact that we have Captain America that doesn't have the serum going against a Hulk is bananas to me. And the way they handle that is just so crazy. But I do like an angry Hulk. And I do think when we get to that point in the film, it actually works on a visual level. Like I love the visuals of the Hulk. I love the rage of the Hulk. But then again, it's taken down a step because it's like you want me to believe that Sam could anyway. There's moments, there's things I like about it, but again, I just feel like they just throw him in this story. It doesn't feel like it's a personal story. It doesn't feel like it has. There's so many cooks in the kitchens with this narrative, and yes, this sounds like a joke at this point, but it is the Hulk sequel. This is the sequel to the Hulk more so than it is a Captain America Sam Wilson story. And it's unfortunate because, again, I like Sam and I like what he represents, and the representation of seeing a black Captain America, which they don't even touch on at all. They're scared. They're scared with this character. They don't know what to do with the character. They want us to believe that he's now going to be the leader of the Avengers. The buildup hasn't been there. With all that being said, you guys can check out more of my thoughts of this film. I have reviews and all that. I'm going to put Captain America. I'm not going to go D, but I'll put it at the C tier. It's unfortunate because they should put more respect on Sam's name. But this to me is, like I said, middling of the road type of experience with this movie. All right. Now get into maybe a hot take with our next project here, and that is Daredevil Born Again, a TV show that, if you all know, has had its own issues. Again, this seems like the franchise. This is the phase that has so many issues with like bringing new characters in, or to say characters that are already established on another universe, this being Netflix, Deadpool with Fox. So they bring in Daredevil and obviously Spider-Man No Way Home, and we saw him in She-Hulk, but now he gets his own TV show, and this is the 4th season essentially coming off of the Netflix series. And boy, this was a mess. I know everyone loves this show. Everyone speaks highly about the show, and it does have moments. Obviously Daredevil's a great character. Matt Murdock's a great character. Kingpin's a cool character, a great complex villain. There's the Punisher of it all. John Berthal is perfect in the role. The violence, they carry that over. I mean, it's, to me, this is like the equivalent to Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, it has all the entertaining stuff that you can enjoy, but the substance is very lacking for me in the show. This is such a Frankenstein of a show. And obviously, if you guys don't know, the behind the scenes of Marvel shot 6 episodes with a whole different creative team. They didn't like what they saw. They retooled it, which I do commend Marvel for doing that. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys greenlit the stories, the scripts before shutting it all down. Like, did you not read them? Like, all of a sudden things changed from when they went to shooting it. Neither here nor there. I do commend them of at least saying this isn't working, let's retool this. But man, the final product, it's the show that they didn't want to make. They still end up making it because we got most of that first batch of episodes were injected into this season, and it made it such a disjointing experience for me. Like, we focus on the Foggy of it all, and obviously these are spoilers. Foggy's death in episode 1 and how that changes Matt Murdock. We skip a year ahead. He's trying to get back into the swing of things, and he's dismantled himself from being Daredevil, but he wants to be Matt Murdock, the lawyer, right? And we focus on that on the first few episodes. We get the White Tiger episode, but I was so mad at how the show treated the White Tiger and how Matt Murdock never took responsibility for getting that man killed. The reveal of him going to the court, showing who he really is, that he's a vigilante, he got him killed. And Matt never had any ramifications. He never had any issues with that. His niece was going to become the White Tiger at some point, never had issues with that. That was so poorly handled. The villain, the serial killer, Muse, was handled poorly. I couldn't stand the Heather character. Him and Matt Murdock has chemistry with a phone book. He had no chemistry with Heather. The whole idea of putting Karen Page in a back burner for Heather pissed me off. The therapy sessions with Kingpin and Vanessa was poorly written and so forgotten about. I do not like this show. I'm being honest with you all. I'm going back and forth. This is really my first time talking about it because I didn't really cover the show at all on my channel, but it finds itself towards the back end because, if you all know, the first episode was shot by the new creators who did Loki, who did Moon Knight. They came back and did the final 2, I believe, episodes 8 and 9. And those are the most cohesive episodes. Like, that 3-episode arc really worked. But all that stuff in the middle, like the bank robbery episode, is so stupid. It's a messy TV show with a lot of fun moments, but no substance. I'm not a fan of this show. This might be crazy to y'all, but listen. D for Daredevil. It is a D show to me. Like, I am not a fan. It is so messy. I encourage you, if you're like, this dude, go rewatch the series and look at the plot holes, look at the inconsistency of the characters in the narrative. It is a messy show with some bad characteristics, some terrible writing. Even with that said, I'm excited for season 2 because the showrunners that were able to retool this thing are going to do their first full season. but this first outing was really bad. It's the worst that we've seen of the Daredevil. It's the worst season of all three, now four. It's a terrible show in my opinion. But getting to the positives, we have a movie that has one director, one vision, one voice, one narrative, and that is Thunderbolts. I really enjoyed this film, man. Like, this to me is an example of when Marvel allows a creator to have their vision, to tell their story, to have some rich characters, to bring them all together. You get something like Thunderbolts. Now, obviously, the film didn't do well financially. It's going to lose money for Marvel, but I think this is still a win because it shows me that when Marvel allows themselves to not be themselves and allow the stories to be told by a storyteller, you get things like the Thunderbolts, Yelena, Bucky, Red Guardian, everything that we get with Bob and how they come together. I like the focus on the mental health of it all that the show has, the movie had to offer. The Bob and Century was really awesome. It's just a really well done film, a good script. That's the key thing. The script is actually good. It's not meddled around when it's.
Look at you. So adorable.
I think Thunderbolts is easily one of the better projects of Phase 5, and definitely, in my opinion, deserves to be in the conversation of the A tier because it is, like I said, it's focused, has a great narrative, great performances, great message, great characters, and I really enjoyed this film. And now we're down to, and don't please forget, I forgot to take down I Am Groot. I don't know why it's on the list. That's not in this phase, and I haven't seen that show. So ignore I Am Groot next to the show that we're talking about, which is Ironheart, a show that I covered on my channel. I've talked about it. I did a live stream watching all the last 3 episodes live, and I have a full review. You can check out on my channel, so I don't want to rehash too much because it's so fresh on the channel and on my mind. But this show came out of the gate stumbling to me. Like, episode 1 was kind of a not so good entry premiere episode. Episode 2 got better. Episode 3 was the best out of the 3. Episode 4 was the best out of the 4. But then those final 2 episodes to me lost the plot. Like, I was not a fan of, from the beginning, I wasn't a fan of the crew. Terrible crew. I thought they were in a different show. The White Castle fight sequence was embarrassing. It was a CW Flash, Arrow, Nickelodeon, Spy Kids episode. That fight was so laughable. It was embarrassing. And then you throw in Ezekiel. His turn to the villain was so cheesy. He was like Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then you pivot over to the backstory of what Parker, what made him want to be who he became because he wanted to take over his dad's business. Like, and the whole theme of like Ezekiel lost his father, Riri lost her stepdad, and all that stuff. On paper, it sounds good, but the execution was so laughable. Episode 5 was a joke. Episode 6 to me was so underwhelming. Idea that Riri sided with Mephisto, not knowing if we're going to get to see this character again anytime soon. This show will not get season 2. That is a guarantee. Like, a lot of these shows don't get season 2. So it's like, why would you write yourself in the corner to put this character in a position? It's an interesting idea that she sides with Mephisto to bring back her best friend, but poorly executed. Again, starts off weak, has the 2-episode arc with 3 and 4, but then that 5 and 6 to me was a huge letdown. And there's so much conversation about the representation of Riri. I like what they're presenting with the character, the intellect, the complexities, the she's a flawed character, which I appreciate, but it just was, she was lost in her own show at a certain point. So unfortunately, Riri, I got to put you in the D list for me. It's unfortunate because it's just a pattern with Marvel, with certain characters, how they're handled and how they're underrepresented. It just didn't turn out well for me. So I'm going to put Riri, like I said, in the D list for me. So there you have it. Taking a look at the full list. The S tier is only one thing on the S tier. That's Loki Season 2. We got Guardians Volume 3 and Thunderbolts in the A tier. We got Deadpool Wolverine and Agatha in the B tier. We got Seasons 2 and 3 of What If in the C tier, along with Captain America Brave New World. D tier, we're looking at Ant-Man 3, The Marvels, Echo, Daredevil, Ironheart, and then at the bottom of the very bottom, at the bottom of the prison, Secret Invasion. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my tier list of Phase 5. I'm going to probably do a ranking of how I would rank these projects, so keep an eye out for that video. It's going to probably be a short video, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, Phase 5 overall, it was a 2-year, 2023 to 2025, 2 years, some highs as we see, but some lows. I think it's safe to say that this is the worst phase of any of the phases. I think that's pretty safe to say if you ask me, but that's just my thoughts. I want to know yours in the comments below. How would you position these films on your personal tier list? How would you rank these particular films and TV shows? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all for watching this. If you like these type of videos, you want to see more of these, let me know in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.